Hello folks, how you doing? It's Des Catties. Happy New Year to everybody. What I'm doing in this video is we're going to talk about firelighting kits and Tinder pouches and all that sort of stuff. So grab yourselves a brew, put your feet up, and then listen to me babbling on needlessly about firelighting kits. So here we go folks, let's talk about firelighting kits. As you probably will know, on YouTube there's 1001 videos on telling you how to make Tinder kits, or what people is their preferred way of producing and making their own firelighting kits, from anything from, you know, from sort of carrying a pouch to sort of having tins and Altoid tins and all that sort of stuff, right the way up to having these lovely sort of leather pouches and such like. Now, in this video I am not going to tell you what you need to have in your firelighting kit. It is up to you. If you want to carry a litre of lighter fuel and one of these good old things called a lighter, then by all means do that if that's what you want to do. But for some reason it seems to be that with a lot of people on the YouTube thing, and I'm not for 1 second sort of caning anyone whatsoever or individually picking people out, but there's always this one-upmanship about bow drilling, and then, you know, you get so many people that are bow drilling, and then there's so many people that are using a hand drill, and then it goes to a fire plough, and it goes to this, and it goes to that, and it doesn't really need to be that sort of, you know, at the end of the day, as long as you get a fire going, it doesn't really matter. I kind of think that if you've got to resort to using bow drills and fire ploughs and all that sort of stuff, then really you're in kind of a bit of a crap state of affairs in that sort of kind of scenario. Or as well be it, it's good to get out there and practice your bow drill skills and hand drills and everything else. So brutally honest, I'm absolutely crap at the hand drill, and I wouldn't really say I'm much better at a bow drill really. I make as many mistakes making the bow drill than I do anything else really. But at the end of the day, you know, like sort of resorting to the sort of natural methods of firelighting, with regards to friction firelighting and such like, I think sometimes it's a little bit of one-upmanship on people, like just trying to, you know, just trying to maybe make themselves look a bit better than the other person. But that's just me. Right, so let's get down to the crux of it then. So obviously when it comes to firelighting, before I start going into all this stuff here, all right, the first thing you've got to do when you're making a fire is obviously prepare everything. Preparation is the key, okay, regardless of what, you know, what you have, preparation is the key. All right, so if for example we're talking about here in the UK or in most parts of the world right now where it's obviously wet and all the rest of it, apart from maybe Australia and the like, but with regards to sort of like, if I'm just using the UK here now, when I'm making a fire, the first thing I do is I'll do one or two things. I'll either lay 2 sticks on the ground and then lay a platform of thicker hardwoods at the base, or what I will do, I'll just have a thick layer of hardwoods on the base, and then I will build my fire up on there. And obviously this is for keeping sort of some of your fuel and tinder a little bit off the ground, and 2, because it obviously provides you with a little bit of airflow, and obviously hopefully you're losing less energy when it comes to obviously for your flame to ignite the materials that you obviously want for your fire. Now the other thing to take into consideration as well is obviously your bundles, yeah, your tinder bundles. Now once you've actually lit something that's going to take a spark, or that's going to immediately take a flame, like an accelerator of some kind, even if it's just cotton wool or something like that, once that cotton wool was set alight, okay, you've got a flame there, you then need to be able to utilize that flame to then light up your other material. Now the last thing you want to do is, if you've got some cotton wool, for example, I'm using now, you burn this cotton wool, the last thing you want to be doing is burning this tinder or accelerator, if you like, completely out, because then what you're going to do is you're going to be left with nothing again. Okay, so what you need to do then, as part of your preparation, you obviously need to make your tinder bundle. All right, a tinder bundle is something that's going to ignite quickly from a flame. Okay, All right, some people nowadays with tinder bundles that we make, and feather sticks, for example, and feather curls and all the rest of it, you can use a ferro rod or a fire match or something like that to get to take a spark. But if you're kind of just starting out, or even I'm not gonna, even for people that have been doing it a while, there's still that's kind of that occupational hazard, as it were, by actually not being able to get those feather curls alight from maybe just using the sparks from a ferro rod. Okay, so by having a decent tinder bundle will obviously make it easier. You'll get a lot more energy from your heat, a lot more energy and a lot more heat, and obviously the flame from your tinder bundle to obviously then light your slightly bigger woods. Now, with regards to tinder bundles and stuff like that, normally the go-to one all the time is birch bark. We've got, most woodlanders got a lot of birch bark in now and all the rest of it, but I've been to woodlands where there isn't any birch. Okay, so we have to resort to other things. Now, some people like to use pencil sharpeners for making feather sticks. A real lazy way of doing things. Okay, I like to make feather sticks, or I at least like to make feather curls. Okay, so that making feather sticks and that's such thing like that. Now, making feather sticks and having feather curls, as long as they're fine, they will ignite quite easy to your initial flame. For example, your cotton wool and such like. Okay, but once you've kind of got that on the go, and you need at least 2 handfuls of that stuff, not a tiny little lump. I mean, it always gets me when I see these videos where, and it's so easy to see, where you have someone that will have a piece of birch bark about so big. They'll be scraping it up till they've got a bit of dust. And then you'll see them spark that dust with a ferro rod, and then the next scene it's cut, and then they've got a blazing fire going. Now I kind of look at that and think, even as I'm seeing them spark the ferro rod, I kind of think it ain't going to work, it's going to go out too quick. So to sort of like really, to really sort of have a fighting chance of actually achieving your common goal of lighting a fire, it's not a bad thing, especially around the sort of autumn winter time and the spring when everything's quite wet and possibly damp. It's not a bad thing to have 2 good handfuls of tinder to take your flame or to take your spark. Okay. Then once you've got that, you want your twigs. Your twigs are going to be something kind of like pencil thickness, pencil lead thickness. Loads of twigs, maybe a good sort of something that you can cuddle. That's okay. Or 2 big handfuls like that as a minimum. All right. Birch twigs are the same, whatever. Try and use woods that are sort of hanging in branches and stuff like that, because they're off the floor, the wind's going through them most of the time, and them ones are probably a lot more dry than the ones that are laying around on the floor. All right, and then once you've achieved that, you can then go on to your bigger fuel, and then there's your fire. All right, but really the sort of main one to get through, the biggest hurdle, I suppose, is to get from something that's going to ignite your fuel, your wood fuel. Right, now something that's kind of a little bit few and far between these days, and to be brutally honest, is these old stormproof matches. Right, now I was given some of these stormproof matches, well, there was some inside a ration pack, and to be quite honest, I used them when I was out Boxing Day, and we had rain all day. And you know what? These were a failure. These were an absolute failure. The strike wasn't good enough to sort of strike the matches. It's a real flimsy kind of piece of, sort of piece of card, if you like. It's not solid enough. It's very easy for it to get damp. You might as well just have a book of matches on your person. All right, and these are absolutely not very good. Now, I always used to remember back from my days in the army when you used to have those kind of stormproof matches that were brown. They were brown, real big, thick things. But these are sort of like I've come by out of one of the 24 ration packs, and they are personally, I think, poor quality. And I did notice that when I put a video up not long ago when I was out with Mac Tartwood, and I lit my fire. Some of the comments that I got back, I'm glad it wasn't just me, but people were saying how they didn't like using those kind of things themselves anyway. So the next thing to use is obviously a lighter. This has got to be, you know, this is probably one of the most foolproof ways, isn't it? Having a lighter on your person. Okay. Some people like to have just a normal lighter, or you've got these, you know, these sort of high-powered lighters, as it were. I've seen them where people wrap them in, wrap gaffer tape around them, and duct tape or gorilla tape or something like that. Because not only that's obviously good, you can use that for fire lighting as well. But obviously it's good for plasters and such like. And I've even seen people, including myself, I've done it before, where they wrap some tape around there, have a little piece of paracord, carry on wrapping, so you know you can sort of hang it on a zip or whatever you like. All right. So they're the sort of they're the kind of the kind of easy physical ones, I suppose. Leading on from that, you've then got stuff like ferro rods. Now I'm not going to spark these ferro rods indoors. Fire matches, ferro rods, ferrocerium rods, whatever you want to call them. Okay. You know, light my fire, and I mean these particular ones I was given. This one I was actually given by someone, and this one I just made up myself using just a piece of wood there. You know, don't really use them that much. These are the old light my fire ones. Okay, that come with the scraper. A lot of people sort of moan about the scrapers, saying that they're not very good, and they just prefer to use their back of their knives and all the rest of it. And that's fine. If you want to use the back of your knife, please do so. Now, for me personally, I don't use the back of my knife. I mean, when I go out to the woods, I've always got my Nomad knife there. Obviously, it's got the Nomad in now, and I've also got a ferrocerium rod attached on the side. This particular one was from Mr. Mears' site. And I like to have a scraper on mine. I mean, this scraper was actually off the BEX fire stills. And, well, if people have seen me use them before, I mean, I absolutely, you know, I love them. I think these work really well. And, but, you know, some people just like to use their back of a knife. I have got the option of using the back of my knife on this one. Again, it'll work. I can do that with the back of my knife, but I do prefer, just me personally, I do prefer to use a scraper. But that's not, you know, I'm not going to have an argument with anyone about that. If that's what you choose to do, use the back of your knife, then that's excellent. All right, so that's the kind of, you know, so obviously my personal thing would I just go for a ferro rod, all right, or a lighter. Also, I've seen, you know, I've sort of seen myself. I mean, I was out some time ago, and I received these off a friend, and these are those BCB Dragonfires, and I'll tell you what, they are brilliant. I mean, I've never used them before. You know, I've seen them and all the rest of it, but if anyone knows, they're basically like a gel, if you like. You just peel the silver foil lid off, and then just light it with a match. I dare say it'll probably take a ferro rod as well, and they are really good. They're really good for such, you know, for such things such as fire lighting and the like. Another one is obviously that I used as an example was the old cotton wool. Cotton wool is great to have in your kit, especially if you've got a kit that's packed in a tin. It's also a good way just to sort of squash bits of cotton wool in there, just to sort of stop things rattling. Leading on from the cotton wool, what I like to do is you've got one method here where, you know, it's just a matter of mixing cotton wool with Vaseline. Quite a messy little task, I suppose, but once you've done it, for example, what I've got here is just like, as you probably will know, this is just the sort of from the neck of two bottles that I've stuck together from like a pop bottle. And then obviously the cap itself is obviously, you know, you can use it for condiments and such like, or you can use that to put cotton wool and Vaseline in. If I take the cap the other end, yeah, and then I can just push out some cotton wool there with the Vaseline in it, and then I can just pull some of that off and use that as my means of fire lighting. And the great thing about something like this is that you can just throw it in your pocket and you kind of don't even know you've got it. The other option to do is to use sort of like cocktail straws. Yeah, and the same again, all you do is just seal them up at one end. Yeah, put your mixture of Vaseline and cotton wool in there, and then just pinch the end with a pair of pliers. A Leatherman, in my case, is what I used, and seal it up with a piece of, with a lighter, and then there you go. And again, it's another thing that you can just chuck in your pocket and kind of forget about, but you've got it as kind of like an emergency fire lighter. So leading on, we've got things like the fat wood. This is obviously this is the highly resonated, the resin from a pine tree. It's got a beautiful smell. Again, just by cutting this off in slivers, it will take a spark. Some people will just stick a lighter under there and light it straight away, or whatever. What I'll do with these, what I'll do with some of mine is, as you can see there, I've got a piece of fat wood. It comes in I've got some out of a box when I bought some bits from somewhere. Basically what I did was I cut it in half, drilled a little hole straight through it, and then I've attached a piece of paracord. And in the paracord, I can then put it on a zip. I can even stick it on a set of keys, whatever. Then you've got some immediate firelighting stuff there. Obviously something that's going to take a spark or a flame. Alright, so that's fat wood, and it's obviously got a gorgeous smell, hasn't it? Candles is another one. It's obviously a good thing to carry. It's good to have candles. One, because they produce light, and again, it's quite a good source for heat as well. Bearing in mind that there's quite a lot of BTUs that come out of a candle. British thermal units, I think there's about 300. Is it about 300 British thermal units to a candle? That gives off quite a bit of heat. So that's quite good. But also, it's also good to learn, or a nice little test to set yourself, is to kind of fluff up the end of a candle wick and then spark it with a ferro rod and see if you can light it with a ferro rod, which is kind of a nice one. But if you can't do that, then obviously you've still got your lighter, or or your other option is to obviously use a ferro rod. So having candles are obviously a good one as well to use, to have. Keeping on the natural side of things as well, apart from the candles, is good old King Alfred's cakes, the Aldinia concentrica. And you find this, these big sort of these bracket fungus that you see growing on the underside of ash trees and such like. You don't want to go for the ones that are brown, that resemble the brown colour, because they don't work. They're normally saturated as well. You want to go for these sort of these dark black ones. These are the better ones for the firelighting. They make good hand drills, and when you I've just dropped that bit. But when you cut them open as well, if you can see there, you've got the concentric rings inside the fungus, and again that will take a spark, no problem. And they're good just to have as hand warmers. I remember sort of showing some young adults some King Alfred's cakes, and they were literally just walking down his footpath, just blowing it into their hands, and they were impressed that they just kept their hands warm. Alright, so good old King Alfred's cakes. King Alfred's cakes is kind of just a nickname for them, but if you want to know the Latin name, if you don't already know, it's Aldinia concentrica. Alright. So going back to the candles as well, also these little tea lights are quite handy to have as well. Yeah, so what I sometimes like to carry as well is this good old wax paper or wax card, and it's basically just a card that's been soaked in some sort of wax. That's quite good stuff. So let's look at some other Tinders then. I've got some tubs here. I've got some, I don't know what it is, but it's like a plumber's hair. I've had it for absolute years. That's pretty good. Burns quite quickly, but it's not bad. I keep some tyre rubber off the old bike inner tubes and such like. And that's normally quite good. I mean, just cutting the strips. I mean, it's pretty good. More if it was quite more, you'd probably use it in more of a tropical environment, light it with a lighter, and then you've obviously got a nice length of rubber. Once you've used it as your form of ignition, then obviously extinguish it, and then keep it till the next time. I call these wood wool, and they're basically like wood shavings. I mean, over here, I dare say you can do it in other countries too, but over here you can buy it in like, it's basically like I like the smell of it as well. It's basically like wood shavings that are being sort of bound together with sort of with like wax, and I love these. I used to use some of these on my wood stove indoors, and they work really well as well. The only thing is about them, they do actually fall apart, but even like the little strands on their own are quite ignitable. Alright, I've got wire wool. Yeah, wire wool's a good one. Again, put a spark into it. You can either use it in the form of shorting out a battery with positive and negative, or even if you spark a ferro rod into it and such like, it'll that will take a spark as well. It won't burst into flame, but it will give you enough heat to obviously light your immediate tinder bundle. Now, one of my favourites, one of my absolute favourites, if you're a watcher to my channel, a regular watcher to my channel, I love char cloth. And char cloth is basically, the actual process is called pyrolysis, and it's basically what it's doing, it's basically heating an organic material to a high temperature, and then you are starving it of oxygen. That's basically what it is. So it's pyrolysis, and that will take a spark from a fire still. That will take a spark from a fire still. Is basically one of the ones that I've got in my tinder pouch here. It's basically just one of these kind of stills that you'd use with a piece of flint. All right. Now, as I say, you know, char cloth's one of my favourite methods of fire lighting, but unfortunately it's a bit like house insurance. You kind of need to have a fire before you can actually make char cloth. And another method to use with the char cloth. Sorry, I'm getting my train of thoughts going off now because I'm just looking at other stuff. Bear with me. So also what I've got here in this tub, which I purchased some time ago, and I used to use it quite a lot, was the old potassium permanganate. Oh, that tube's empty. And I actually purchased this from eBay. Condy's crystals, it's also called here in the UK. I don't know where it's called that anywhere else. Condy's crystals, or just potassium permanganate. And what we used to do, primarily it was used for sort of athlete's foot and stuff like that. But mixing it with with some granules of sugar. Or maybe if you're in a vehicle and you can get hold of some antifreeze or something like that, squashed into a sheet of newspaper. What it does, it chemically reacts, and then whatever it's covered in, for example, say a length of newspaper or bark or something like that, then that'll then create flames and give you and it's quite a ferocious heat as well. Okay. If we look at these tinder pouches, I've got three here. I've got one which is made from made from sort of like a tobacco pouch. Right, it's just got like an elastic around it, like for hair or something like that. It's got it's waterproof on the inside. Okay, and in here I've got obviously all my tinder materials. If we look at the one this is just a version of that without the plastic covering on it. Okay, now one of the other ones that I've got has actually got a pocket in the back there, and I've got other stuff in there. Now I think I mentioned earlier about the lighter, gaffer tape and a bit of cordage on it. Well, as you can see there, that's one lighter that's in this particular tinder pouch. And another one that I've got is one of these fancy sort of leather ones, and I went for a tiny little phase of wearing possible pouches and all that sort of stuff on a belt, but I find for me personally it was kind of quite restrictive. So if you've been watching my videos of late, you'll have seen that I've been using a chest pack, and I'm trying to use that as my means of as my kind of immediate possibles pouch, if you like. Now I'm going to show you this one first. Okay, now there is a video up there where I go into detail. I'll put a link in the description, and you can actually go over and have a look at the guy's website. He's a Russian chap, and speaks brilliant English, or writes brilliant English as well. And this particular pouch, when I saw it, I just love the fact that it had loads of the light isn't probably picking it up too well, but it's got nice little slots and everything else to keep everything tidy. Now when I purchased it, it came with a tin of char cloth, the fire steel, shard of flint and such like, and some rope, and then all I've done to it is I've added a few other bits. But whereas I used to stuff loads and loads of char cloth in there, it used to look a right mess. So I've kind of tidied it up. I've kind of tidied it up. So I've got these kind of little these fire lighting fan dangly things that you can get from sort of like the pound store. I've got some jute twine now. Got another one of those fire lighters. For what it's worth, I've got some of those pink stormproof matches in there. Got a piece of wax paper, and then I've got two shards of flint in there. Just two flakes. All right, that go with this steel. And I think this produces lovely sparks, to be quite honest. I really do. It really does produce lovely sparks, this one. I'm really impressed with it. Alright. And then finally, what I do love is the tiny little tin. And the tin has good old charcoal off in there if I can get the lid open. It's squashed a little bit because obviously it's inside my, it's always inside my pouch. Not very great trying to get that off without, you know, if you've got cold hands. But as you can see in there, there's char cloth. Yeah, so there's obviously there's char cloth in there. All right, so that's a great little kit, that, and it wasn't that expensive either. But I do like it. I love the fact that it's all nice and. Oh, I think I've forgot to mention as well was the magnifying glass. Now I had an old set of binoculars. I think I watched one of Dave Canterbury's videos, which are, to be quite honest, I've been watching some of his of late, and I had an old pair of binoculars that were pretty knackered. So what I've done was I took one of the lenses out the bottom. Okay, I found a tin, and what I've done was the magnifying glass, the lens was a bit too sort of, it was flapping around inside the tin. So what I've done was I put a piece of leather in the bottom and a piece of leather in the lid, and then what I do now is I just basically protects the lens, and also it doesn't rattle inside the tin, and this goes lovely inside there as well. So it's quite a nice composite kit that I sort of like to use. I've got another fire steel, but it's in my day sack in the shed, and I haven't got that out. I didn't get that out, but that's not a problem. I've also got a piece of, in there, lastly, all black, is a piece of, like, this is off a cotton wool. This is like the cotton wool. This is off a mop, and this is just basically like the cotton, and it's been dipped into wax. All right, so that's sort of like a nice, sort of fancy sort of tinder pouch. I'm not going to empty the contents out of here because it would just go absolutely everywhere. But in this one, for example, I've got a lighter. Okay, I keep a piece of candle. There's untold amounts of birch bark in there. Oh, I can never have enough birch bark. Absolutely good stuff, full of resin and oil such like. And obviously it burns very well in the when it's wet and in the rain. And then finally I've got this last one, which has got similar stuff in it as well. I mean, even in there as well, what I sometimes do, you don't seem to come by it very much, but it's like the old film reels. And I've got in one of my old tinder kits, I've got some, and I've got reams of that as well, which is quite handy for firelight and works in not a dissimilar way to sort of tyres. If you can't sort of afford, you know, if you can't, let me move my tea. If you can't actually afford sort of like fire steels and such like, not a bad thing is to get hold of an old file, and again works on the same principle as a piece of flint, and you get a spark off that as well. I've got to be careful because I don't want flint sort of flitting around on the furniture at home. All right, but you can get sparks off that as well if you're sort of, you know, if you're kind of on a bit of a budget. All right. Now I've got that magnifying glass that's in that tinder pouch there. I've also got this one as well. This is one of those. This is a big old bugger. I wonder if I could wear that as a monocle. What do you reckon? So anyway, yeah. So there's another means of you know, making a fire with a magnifying glass. But the only thing is you need the sunshine most of the time. I've also got one of these solar lighters or parabolic mirrors. Okay, you can do it really simple with a pop can, with like a tin, with like a can of like a fizzy drink can, polish the bottom of it, and then using a bit of stick with a piece of char cloth on it, and basically just aim it the same way. And the idea is that you put your char cloth in the top of here, okay, direct the sun into there, and what it does, it beams off, and then all you do is you literally can direct it, and it'll burn your charcoal off there. I mean, the actual demonstration for it shows a cigarette. So yeah, you know what I mean, if you're that way inclined, you know, I mean, I did used to leave just like a bit of charcoal off in there as well. You probably can't see, but there's some soot in that bag just from where remnants of where I charcoal. But I don't really use it very much, you know, because sometimes we are a little bit hard pushed for the sunshine in this country. All right, and then we've got all these other sort of, you know, all these weird and fat, you know, we've got tins and, as I say, Altoid tins and tobacco tins and all the rest of it that people like to make up their, you know, to sort of contain their sort of firelighting stuff. When I was out the other day and I was firelighting, I've got a hand drill there, and I've got a bearing in there as well. All right. And this is just I've made out of a piece of ash, and I kind of used, you know, as my everyday one for going out. This, I like to take this, yeah. And then if I'm going to get, you know, if I want to practice me bow drill, I'll carry a hearth of some kind. I mean, these two pieces here are lime, and then I've got a, that's not hazel, or is it? Don't look like hazel actually, but I've got a drill there that's obviously suitable for bow drilling. And then all I will do is make up a bow when I'm actually out in the woods. Now, if I'm going to sort of clarify of what I would take, all right, I mean, I don't want to sort of, you know, there's 1,001 things. You know, you can use a mobile phone, you can use the terminal points from a torch, and so on and so forth. You know, you can, you know, carry sort of grasses and such like, you know, and all the rest of it. And this video isn't really that much to go on about that sort of stuff. I just wanted to talk about some of the immediate stuff that I personally use here in the UK. All right, but if I'm going out, I will obviously take a Tinder pouch with me. And then if I'm trying to sort of test myself a bit more, I'll maybe have my bow drill. And then finally, as means of firelighting, really, it's going to be my knife with the ferro rod, and then I'll have a lighter. Okay, so anything else off of that, apart from obviously me using charcoal off and a sea steel or something like that as well, that's kind of like my methods that I like to use, and it sort of works quite well for me. That's something I really like doing. All right, but that's not to say that I won't use other stuff as well. You know, I mean, as I say, last couple of, I think I've been a bit sort of cheating really, and I used one of the, is it cheating? I don't know, but I used one of these Fire Dragons by BCB. It worked totally well, but there's nothing stopping you using what you like, really. Yeah, I mean, there's no, you know, it shouldn't be, you know, you shouldn't suffer when it comes to making your fire. Yeah, so I mean, if you're a bushcraft instructor or someone like that, or someone that's maybe teaching people all the time, it makes sense to be au fait with every firelighting skill that there is out there. But if you're someone that's just a hobbyist or someone that just goes out practicing the skills and enjoying, maybe it's worth just knowing a certain few rather than sort of inundating your brain with too many means of firelighting. But then, you know, I suppose it's the argument is the more, you know, the more weapons you have in your arsenal and your firelighting arsenal, the better it is for you. But, you know, I mean, as I say, for the methods that I kind of use are the ones that work for me. All right. One thing I do like doing now, I do like using curls. I do like using feather curls or feather sticks or so when I'm doing my fire as well. But as I say, it's very important that you make sure that your preparation to your fire is perfect. And I think one that's totally forgotten quite a lot of as well is obviously when you finish with your fire, managing your fire, and at the end of the time when you need to make sure that it's completely, that it's doused out properly, and that you cover it over and obviously leave no trace, as it were. All right, so and then finally, just to finish off, then I've just found this little thing here. Now this used to have a whistle on the bottom with a ball in it, and I didn't like it. And it's actually got a compass on the top of there as well. But what I kind of have got in there though, clogged up. It's actually got some. Actually, can I get that bit out? Yeah, it's actually got. Bloody hell! It's actually got the. It's actually got the old, I don't know how old these are, but they've been in there for a long time. And these have actually got, these are like the old Swan Vesta, you know, the sort of strike anywhere match. And these have actually been painted with nail varnish because they're supposed to obviously waterproof the head of the match. And then secondly, obviously burn a little bit more. Some people will, if they're going to use like the the sort of like strike anywhere match, they'll normally do it into, they'll obviously sometimes drip wax onto them. Some people leave them in strips. I think it was in the Lofty Wiseman book, I think there's a diagram in there where he's got like a series of matches all on a surface, and then wax has been poured over them, so basically you get a long strip of sort of like strike anywhere matches, and then obviously you just break off the one you want to use, strike it, and then, you know, use it as whatever you're using that particular match for. All right, so there it is, folks. All right, so thanks for watching. A bit of a babbling on video really, but if you're new to bushcraft, hopefully you've learnt something, and if not, then no worries. So please leave a comment. Take care. Des Catty signing out, and I'll see you on the flip side. Take care.